Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I like it when we respond. You know, in Africa, they do that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Makes us all feel welcomed. And we welcome you, too, for choosing this session when there are so many good options at the Skoll World Forum. But thank you for choosing this one that the Skoll World Forum has so aptly named Victors, Not Victims. Although we know, and we heard from Ensler this morning, that there are 1 billion women who are victims of rape or who are beaten in their lifetime. And it is, as she said, a UN statistic. And then when you add in all the other victims of all other kinds of gender-based violence, we're talking about 1 billion plus victims of violence on this planet. Could we have had a better plenary lead into this session today? With Nick Dassinger's dazzling and important images and with Eve Ensler's inspiring talk, I feel we're all prepared now and ready to talk about women as victors, women who are surviving this violence. Because the statistics that we just talked about are even worse when you look at the 3 countries that we focus on today: Somalia, Sudan, and Democratic Republic of Congo. The 3 most dangerous places in the world to be a woman. In these 3 countries, the numbers of violence against women is escalating. And that's why we are pleased that we can use these today as a prism in which to look at the bigger issue of how women are surviving and beyond surviving, innovating new models for other women and their families. Rapes in this country and elsewhere, of course, have been for a long time now a systematic tactic of war, a tactic that is successful because it's carried out largely without impunity, and a tactic that is intended to humiliate, instill fear, disrupt communities and families. And, of course, the end goal often in these conflicts is to seize resources, power, minerals. The tactic has been successful, as we said, because it has been committed with impunity, and because sexual violence, and this is really why we're so pleased for this time today, sexual violence is still not, in spite of those numbers and in spite of this systematic tactic that is succeeding, is still not on the highest priority agenda for the world's government and even for many of the world's non-government agencies. But it has been clearly articulated to be, especially as Eve likes to say, the mother of all other issues. We can't really address poverty, education, economic empowerment, political leadership if women and girls continue to hit the barriers of gender-based violence. If they live in fear, if they can't go to school in safety, if they can't carry on their businesses with security, we must end violence first. Today you'll meet change agents who are not ending the violence yet, but are making a big difference every day. How are they doing this? How are they turning victims into victors? How are they transforming lives in the middle of this most dangerous place? And what are they learning from the work they are doing that can empower all of us to do the work that we do all the better? Especially since this is an audience that understands completely what we mean when we say the other side of risk is always opportunity. And these women are seizing the opportunity in conflict countries to make a big difference. They're brave, they're entrepreneurial. The politics behind the conflicts that they're living in have deep historical roots, and it is not our purpose, and it would not be possible to explain fully the nature of these conflicts. Our purpose today is different. Our purpose is to help us better understand the circumstances in which innovative models of care, support, and training are leading to peace, sustainability, and can and are having positive impact. These heroic women traveled great distances and at some personal risk to be with us. I want to introduce them one by one so that we can have a one-on-one conversation, and then all of us will engage in a conversation to be joined by Eve Ensler and then by you as we welcome your questions and interactions with this remarkable group. It was V-Day, whose movement we heard described in the plenary, who have identified these women and supported their work and helped bring them to us today. Thank you for that, Eve. Let me introduce the first, Christine Schuler Descriver. She's the director of V-Day in Congo and the director of the City of Joy, which you heard somewhat about, a revolutionary community that does in fact exist in the middle of the war zone of Bukavu, offering women, the rape survivors there, a place to heal physically and psychologically and to learn the kind of skills that can transform their pain to power and send them back into their communities as leaders. Since 1998, when her best friend was raped and murdered in the conflict, a conflict that has claimed millions of lives, and that same year when a baby died in her arms, Christine decided she would devote the rest of her life to ending violence in her country and finding the most effective way she could to empower the women and the communities to fight with her for the Congo to reclaim its power and restore its peace. Please welcome Christine Schuler, Describer. And we definitely take time for hugs. It makes us all feel more aware of the community and happy to be a part of it. Christine and I were together recently because I had the great privilege to travel to Congo and the City of Joy a couple of times this year and was there at the opening and then also seeing the unbelievable transformation that occurred at the graduation of this first group of women to leave the center. So I want you to begin by telling the audience what the City of Joy is, and I'm going to go reclaim the clicker so that I might share the pictures with them. Begin.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. First of all, I need to apologize because my language is French, so I'm sorry if I make some mistakes. City of Joy, a few years ago, it was like a dream. I was working for the German Technical Corporation for 13 years, leading all the projects in the eastern part of DRC. And at that time, I was really depressed because I was well paid. I lived in my comfort, but I was not happy at all because I didn't see the result of my work. It was just money, 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 no follow-up and no results. So I met Eve Ensler in 2007. One of our common friend, Dr. Mukwege, who met her in New York, wanted me to meet with her. But because she was a celebrity, I refused. Because I was so sick of all the celebrities who came to visit us with all the press magazine, just like to swallow our misery. They were like bulimic of what's going on in Africa. So for me, hearing about celebrities, it was no way. And one day, I went to the hospital, and then they brought that little girl. She was 6 years old, raped. And because all my friends, they're so sick of me, they cannot understand how I made sacrifices, no social life anymore. And so I have nobody to listen to me and to share my tears. I don't know why I took my phone and I called this woman. She was in Haiti. And I was like, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Christine. She was, of course, I remember you. And I started crying. I explained her the story. And then she told me, I'm coming. And she came. And by the time I saw her, it was like the connection. For me, it was like, she's my woman. Because we share the same vision of life, the same vision of development, and she had something here she had that I call a heart. At that time, I was completely depressed. I was on anorexia. I was dying. I went with her to the hospital. I was a translator. I thought I'd heard everything about what happened in Congo, about all the rapes, the baby dying in my arms, but I noticed that there was worse than what I heard. So at that time, she asked the woman, for the first time I think they asked African, what do you want? She asked them, we want a roof. We want to be empowered. We want to take back our power. We want to take back our country. We don't want to stay beggars. So how do you want it? And then they designed, we don't want to be together. We want small houses, like a village. How will we name it? City of Joy. Because they had this huge warehouse where all the women were dancing and singing in spite of everything they passed through. And then we started, just with ideas, a group of women from all around the world to create City of Joy. And at that time, I was still working with these people. I decided I gave up everything. I resigned. After 13 years, I just asked Vide, give me 1 month to go and see my doctor in Belgium. Because I knew that a new life will start for me. I will really feel, like the person I wanted to be for others. And I have people like Ensler, the movement, with all these amazing women, we're working with around the world, that will just be, like Yves said this morning, just wind behind our backs. They never imposed a thing, and we built this City of Joy, this amazing place. And a month ago, we had our first graduation.
Before we get to graduation, they're looking at pictures of the very beginning, of when you bought the land, again, in a very difficult to get to area next to the Pansy Hospital, where thousands of rape victims and survivors line up to get the surgeries they need to be put back together. Now, some of them get to come to this place. But what strikes you when you see these pictures, just to go, the one we saw before?
Like the first picture.
The women themselves.
Yeah, the first picture. We wanted to make also an experience in Congo, because women are not just, to have babies and to make the fields. So we wanted to hire and to make the experience, hiring women, to build themselves their City of Joy. And we were very successful. And even all the men were surprised, because every time we went there, only women were working all day long. So it was, even now, most of the construction agency, they hire women. So it was already a revolution, hiring women, building houses.
And actually, the women who worked on it went on to set up a business, right? Where they're now building other things in Congo.
Yeah, for example.
They were pretty good at it.
Yeah. Now they are building everywhere. Even around City of Joy, there's another place called Maison d'Orcas they are building, and most of the workers are women who already built at City of Joy.
So who gets to come there? What is the criteria?
So we have different criteria. First of all, you have to be survivors, not only of rape, but of gender violence. And we worked with national NGOs. We have this criteria. For example, we have a criteria of age. You have to be between 15 and 25. You have to be healed physically. Because mentally, we are taking care of that. And so we have all this process of selection. And then the women come and they stay there for a 6 months training. It's kind of intensive training, 8 hours a day. And
what do you teach them?
First of all, we need to heal the mental. And we have this amazing program adapted for Africa based on music, art, and dance. Because we live in community, so we do everything in community. Some cases need individual follow-up, then we make this individual follow-up. We also we work with amazing group also that VDA is funding in Kenya, who came also to teach self-defense. And that was a very good experience because I like this African, like this solidarity. And after that, for the women who cannot write and read, we have the literacy course, we have English course, we have a tech center. Very important also sensibilisation, HIV, and also a sexual education, and mostly based on all this birth control. Because yesterday I was like, when I was at the theater, I was demography. You saw Congo was like, every time we go to City of Joy, it's like every woman is pregnant, and the soil is so fertile. It looks like all the women are so. So it's like, I think also the woman is part of, taking back your power. Women also have to take the power of their body and also to decide, how many children they have, they want to have.
I was watching your face as Hans Rosling was doing that demographic study about Congo, but the fact that the women are given sexual education as well as birth control is, again, a somewhat controversial and innovative decision on your part to do in Congo. But that's part of your preparing them better for the life outside the City of Joy. What else do they leave with besides the physical strength, the self-defense, the healing, often speaking English, reading and writing? There are other things that you send them back to their communities.
Also, like communication. Communication is very important because, like now we have women who went back to their community, and they need to see how to treat the information and spread it instead of spreading like all the rumors. And now we have, in the group we had before, we had like 5 of them became like the correspondent of the national radio and television in their community. And that's very important because I think that one day they will have to talk for themselves. I hope one day one will come here in my place and talk for themselves because they are the survivors.
And that's part of the purpose. Yes, Christine, is not just to turn victims into survivors, but to turn them into leaders. That is how 100 women a year transform starts to make it 200 women a year start to make the difference.
Yeah, because it's not our slogan, it's like transform pain to power. And then we have like 10 ways to transform this pain to power. And it's like our Bible at City of Joy, or I don't know the name in English.
10 principles.
10 principles, exactly. And I'm not going to name all the principles. Like one is to tell the truth and like to give what you like the most, etc. And everything we have at City of Joy, there's a lot of love. And the love we have for the woman and all between us, it regave like self-esteem in the women themselves. Because when they arrive at City of Joy, first of all, they are so traumatized, they cannot sleep, they have these nightmares. They don't feel, as human. Even when they come just to shake your hand, it's like, will she shake my hand or not? And by the time you hug her, it's like, you can see her really brightening because, it's just, I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Yes, of course we do. So what has been the reaction of the community around? You are in an area where there have been millions killed and hundreds of thousands brutalized and victimized. So how do you provide safety, security in such a region?
Security, first of all, that's the most important because, as you know, we still live in a war zone, so we really focused on security. And now we're planting some trees, but we have barbed wires, we have lots of guards. You don't really see them, but we have guards. And we have lights everywhere. We will have like solar because, as you know, we don't have electricity most of the time. So we will have everything solar, to have lights during the night. And we have an alarm system that can alert into town. But it's like I always said, if somebody really wants to do something, they will do it. we did everything it not to happen. And I think we also have like the Pakistanis from the United Nations who are neighbors. So at least I think for the first time in Congo, they are there for the good cause. So that's also...
They actually played the brass band at the graduation. but they are, as you say, they are showing up to be helpful. So what do you hope for, Christine? You're currently, I don't know how you're surviving, sleeping, none at all, phone calls all during the night, everyone wanting to get to the City of Joy, which is saving as many lives and transforming as many as possible. What is your hope, your vision for Congo coming out of the work you're doing?
First of all, for the women to be empowered, to be leaders, so they can take back their country. They can take back their country, because if you also see the history of Congo, Belgian Congo, Zaire, and then Congo again, this country never belonged to the Congolese. I don't know if I will say unfortunately, or I'm a granddaughter of the Belgian colonialist. I'm myself a product of a forbidden wedding. And so the only thing I hope for this country is peace, and that Congolese will take back their country and decide for themselves what they want for their country.
And when you see women like this who come in, as Christine described them, leaving empowered like this, you can believe that one courageous entrepreneur with support and encouragement and community can create a revolution in the middle of the conflict. We'll hear more about City of Joy in just a moment. Must tell us about Jane quickly. She's such a story that illustrates the victim to victor.
Yeah, that's Jane. She spent, I think, 9 years at the hospital, several reparation because she had to be repaired, and she's not yet completely healed. She was the first one I've met at the hospital in 2007. And from the beginning, she was part of the conception and everything. She took care of the constructions with me. She was part of the first group. And by the time she learned English, one day she told me, she was Jeanne in French. And then she told me, Jeanne died at the hospital. Now my name is Jane. And she just became one of the greatest leader we have. And now she's working at City of Joy. And she's so proud, just so proud, because people respect her and call her Madame. Mm-hmm. And it's like she's a reborn person, and she's an example for other women that there can be life after being having multiple rape like her. Because I think she's the woman who has the most tragic history of being brutalized by people.
But the greatest promise.
No, she's
the
amazing.
governor of the region not only called her Madame, he predicted she might be the president of Congo one day.
No, she's amazing.
And that is what we hope. May I ask you to allow someone else to come to your seat and to move forward and join us as I introduce our next woman. The stories don't end here because we'll have time to speak to each of the women together as well. But I want to introduce you now to Fartuun Adan. Fartuun traveled from Mogadishu, Somalia, to be with us today. Given the stories that we are reading almost every day about the violence and what we have long known for the last 2 decades about how hard life is there with the famine, the violence, and given all that we know, how difficult it was for Fartuun to make this journey. Many airports, by the way, are on alert for Somali aircraft, and she told me an amazing story of 6 hours of being flown from one airport to another before being even allowed into Great Britain, and then there detained in customs for 2 hours. But in spite of all that and the danger she faces at home, she returned to Somalia after being free and empowered and living on her own with her daughters in Canada. Her husband was politically assassinated for running the Elman Human Rights Center in Mogadishu. And after years of being away and educating her daughters, Fartuun made the very brave decision to return to this country, reopen the Elman Human Rights Center, and establish the Women's Resource Center called Sister Somalia. Please welcome our sister from Somalia. Fartuun and I are not exactly sure what photographs you're going to see because there's no wireless often in Mogadishu, as you might imagine. So there was some difficulty in shipping images back and forth, but we don't need the images. We have you here, and whatever images we have will be an addition. I want to say how much we all admire and yet question why you return to a place of such imminent danger. And you told me that part of it was you wanted to help restore the Somalia that you grew up with, that you knew.
Yes.
Tell us about that Somalia.
Thank you, everybody, coming to hear and to listen to us. I go back to Somalia because the way I grew up and the way the young generation are growing are different. When I was young in Somalia, the education was free. Everybody has education and healthy. But now is the young generation, young girls under 20, are completely different because they believe they are women, nothing they can do. They have to sit home. They have to cover their face. That's it. It's fine. We were Muslim forever. It's not we are becoming Muslim now. And covering up, it's fine, but not too extremist. Now we have an extremist in Mogadishu teaching the girl, saying, you can't walk alone, you can't go by yourself, you have to stay home, you don't need education, you're just going to marry. And they're going to marry in 13, 14, and they get divorced in 2-3 weeks. You see in Mogadishu, 13 girls, 15 has a child. Not having anywhere to go, no education there. They don't know how to hold the pen. It takes you days just to show them, can you hold this pen? So the image they carry is, I'm here just to have a baby or to marry if I'm lucky. Other than that, that's it. And on top of that, one of the things actually moves me is how much rape is going on in Somalia. And we don't talk about it. It's a silence. We don't talk about it because our religion, our culture. If you ask one man, he said, our culture, no, we don't rape women. And that's when they get raped, those young girls, they stay somewhere, just sitting there. And the whole life is done because they can't talk about it. And when we say talk, well, you get raped, this is not your fault. This has happened. What are you going to do about it? Now you can move on. You have a life. That's where I start the education for the young girls. To come to the classes, to get the education, to have a hope, having just a fun time, staying together. And now starting talking about the rape. Even the government, we said, what are you going to do about this? This is what's going on. But they deny it. They said, no, we don't have it. Even our prime minister publicly said, we don't have a rape. And the women are coming out and saying, I got raped. It's no protection. It's no justice. It's nothing.
But rape is a relatively new phenomenon in Somalia. And recently the New York Times, however, reported, I think after a visit with you at Sister Somalia, that there were tens of thousands and escalating every day, and as you say, not that many reported. So this is a new phenomenon that is a part of this current conflict. How do you describe what's changed, what's happened?
it has been a rape, but it was slowly. It wasn't as much as it now, because a lot of women are coming to the Mogadishu to get the food. Because of the drought, it's different areas they come in. There's no man with them. It's just the women and children. When they come into Mogadishu, they stay at the IDB camps. And the IDB camp is nothing. It's just a paper and it's no protection. It's no rule of law. This guy, he's carrying a gun. He can do whatever he wants, and nobody's stopping it. And the thing is, even the woman, she won't talk about it because she's saying, if I get raped today, I might get killed tomorrow. So if I talk to them and say, because we were working as a human rights, we will go into the IDB camps and then say, if I tell you, what can you do? It's no justice. Nobody's helping me. So we try at least psychosocial support, talking to them, say it happens, but can you move on, do something? And that's when it comes to Sister Somalia. We just try to hold each other and talk to, have a little fun. This is the picture we went to the beach. These people, these girls, they never went to beach. When they went to the beach, they're not allowed because you are a woman. You shouldn't be having this clothes and going to the beach. But I said, we're not naked. We're having a clothes. And it's just having a little fun. They're playing. This young girl, she's 15. She got raped. Twice, actually. And then she just did the breast, sitting home. No school, no nothing. Then when she's here, she's happy. She's smiling. And, that's one of the things pushing on. It pushes me to do things. And it's a lot we can do in Somalia.
But doing this work, because, as you say, the government is still denying that there are rapes at all involved in the conflict. And the fact that there are armed militia everywhere, how are you doing this work in the middle of this incredibly violent city?
It's very risky. It's staying in Mogadishu is very risky. You never know what's going to happen. But this is going on 21 years. It's not something you never know when it's going to be over. And we took the chance. I have girls, but they get the chance. They get the opportunity to study, to stay safe place. But if you don't get that opportunity and you are living this, what do you have?
And how do they know about you, Fartuun? How do they hear about the services, and what kind of protection can you provide if they come to tell their story or they come to be educated, which is, you do offer them school?
Yes, we do. It's when I go back to Mogadishu, we had a center, and that center was, we were working more in child soldiers and the kids coming from Shabab, and that's why my husband got assassinated, because he was helping these kids. So when I go back, I was doing that job. And then working as a human rights and going different IDB camps, that's why I see the need for these young girls. And it's it's a support system. It's even just talking. It takes us days just to talk to them and have a trusted. Because they're all the shame, all the stigma attached to it. They said, okay, I'm 15. If I tell you I get raped, who's going to marry me? What am I going to do in life? So that makes it more silent.
So what happens to that 15-year-old when she comes to Sister Somalia? How is she different after her time there? And what kind of life can she have?
She can, the life that she can have. First of all, she will come into the classes. She's studying. She's using computers and the technology and internet. Sometimes they listen to music. So it changes little by little. So when sometimes we have a music, we have to turn it low, because sometimes if the outside they said, "Oh, you're teaching music for the girls?" No, we're not teaching music. We're just having a little bit fun. So it changed. And they dance, honestly, when we're in the class. But when they're going outside, they cover up, and they're happy when they're at the center. and I wish we can have the City for Joy because we don't have it.
So what would make your work stronger and more impactful?
It's a change, it's a hope. You see the change. It's absolutely a change. I'm so proud what we're doing because it's changing, and they actually standing up themselves now. They can walk to the people and talk back and say, okay, so what? I get raped, so what? Now I can do whatever I want. That makes me proud. And I said, okay, go girl, you can do it.
Thank you, Fartuun. Thank you very much. And again, and in our question and answer period, we'll get a chance to talk more about the specific lessons that these women have learned that can help all the rest of us doing work wherever they may be. Our next guest comes from Sudan, another country that is so often in the news and was referenced many times this morning in a couple of the talks. And we know that in this country there's a great need for human rights activists, and Fahima Hashim has been doing human rights work and women's movement work in Sudan for quite some time. Ever since the succession of the South has once again plummeted that country into such a fragile state in which people living in both the North and the South are living with another round of uncertainty, fear, and violence. Fahima is the director of the Salma Women's Resource Center, and she's also one of the leading voices in Africa's women's movement. Please join me in welcoming Fahima Hashim. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Fahima has taken a slightly different approach in her work. Although her Salma Women's Resource Center offers the training and the education and the support that comes from community, just as we know the City of Joy and the Ulman Human Rights Center and Sister Somalia do. But Fahima, perhaps because of your background as a human rights activist, you have chosen also to engage the women who come into the center in what I might describe, and I assume you would agree with the description, more political work, more work that is about changing laws as well as changing culture, about defying stereotypes and taboos. Can you talk about the nature of that work?
Thank you very much, and I'm really glad to be here.
You might place us here.
Yeah. The situation of Sudan is the new country today, very recent, has not yet a vision of a state and no government that really have a clear plan to take us forward. So it's a little bit complicated situation because the legal system that is existing today is exactly the same since 1990s. And the peace agreement in 2005, maybe most of you know, came to reform these laws. But unfortunately, until the secession of South Sudan occurred, there's nothing happened because the fundamentalist Muslim groups, they didn't want to change that. And we have the most horrible legal system ever that is really against women, basically. That's what we call the legal system is not, we call it womenism. The way they deal with criminal code and the personal code is absolutely not on the side of us. The major problem, as I define it, that it's not the Sudan that we have a problem of, the South Sudan gone because of jihad and Muslim Christian people, but it's because of the curse of diversity. We have a lot of diverse, and such a diverse that lies in more than 450 tribes, over 500 languages spoken in that country, but we could not tolerate that. The ruling of the country is a 40% total population of what they call themselves Arab and Muslim, for that matter, who are not accepting that diversity. So I call it the curse of diversity. For us, the South's gone not because they are Christians, because they are Muslim Southerners. It's because we could not tolerate our African brothers and sisters. Again, now what's happening in South Kordofan and the Blue Nile is again because they are not quote-unquote Arab as the culture defines it. So for us, what we are fighting for is to create a tolerant new generation, to accept the difference and fight again to make a unified Sudan that accepts each one of us. Political participation of women had been absolutely historic. I mean, since 1965, we had the first woman parliamentarian who is in the picture here. We are always very proud of her. She's now over 80 and she's not in the movement anymore, but we are thankful for whatever she did to us. But since then, you can see the way backwards that we are going. In 1960s, the women had got all rights that you can imagine. Today, we have taken nothing. We need to again work for all this. It's a book called Taking Our Place, where we have worked so hard in the 2010 elections because we had a generation who had never gone for election, who had never seen democracy, and we wanted them to understand how women have been powerful and really, really politically involved and decisive in the executive management of the government. So this book, unfortunately, depicts different kind of personalities of women who have really taken the path to go forward for political participation. The other thing that we do is we're not reforming laws, but we are actually looking at how people understand the complexity of the legal system. For example, the criminal code says there's no definition of rape. Adultery is dealt with, rape is dealt with as adultery. If I am raped today and I stand in front of the court, they tell me, since you have admitted that you have been raped, that means you have committed adultery. And I go for 40 lashes, between 40 to 100 lashes. And if I'm married, then stoning is there in the law, but it's been pending, not yet practiced, not like situation of Iran. This book, this red cover, it's called Sound of Music. Actually, what we wanted to do out of this book is to show the young generation that women of Sudan has always been free, had space to contribute to the social life, and they have been wearing whatever dress they liked, ever. Because now, with my trousers, I get 40 lashes if I'm caught and taken to court. So we are empowering ourselves much more than feeling the depression of not to take that forward. And we are teaching, not teaching, but we are actually informing the young generation. Sudan has more than 65% of people between 15 and 25 years old. So we are a young country, and we have that wealth that we don't want to lose. So we are concentrating on giving the young generation a lot of knowledge on how to know what was the history of the country, but also to create a present of their own and how to move with that future. When we go further here, we have done a lot of work in the election of 2010 because it was a venue for us since 1986 was the last election. And I was young at that time, not really aware of what is the situation like. But in 2010 election, we had made a women minimum agenda. We brought women of South Sudan. We brought women of the Nuba Mountains. We brought women from East Sudan. We all agreed of what we want to be located in the coming election. Unfortunately, the election went very false, and that at least made a mark for us to create something together. Then, when the referendum came, we also wanted to make a mark for our point. So we had 60 women from North South Sudan as well as the Nuba Mountain. We sat and made a vision of how we want the referendum to happen, and even the secession, if it takes place, how we want our solidarity to continue. And that actually, sadly enough, the complexity of the political situation between North and South Sudan today did not really let us think of going forward, but we will not stop doing that. So keeping the bonding with women of South Sudan we'll continue. And we have really made that quite successful, but we cannot go to Juba as normally we used to go. We need to get a visa, we need to get an international flight to go back to Juba. And this is the situation of us working as a movement. As Pat said, our movement is to keep peace society and just society for everybody. Being in the north and south, we are not feeling the separation in the heart. The geopolitics created it because it has a different game. But we are not going to do that. We will continue. Maybe we regain each other one day. We're hoping for that.
Yeah. And again, Fahima, we think of you're doing this work, political work, culturally challenging work, work across borders, with the most fragile state, whether you say no government support, no place to turn should you need security. So how large are your numbers? How vibrant is the movement now in this kind of environment?
Well, I think the number is indefinite. I mean, I say it, I mean it.
Not that numbers matter.
No, it doesn't matter. But for us, for example, today, when we talk about Nuba Mountains, and we work with women of the Nuba Mountains, with the conflict going on today, no humanitarian aid allowed. The government and the international community is not opening up to create a push with the government of Sudan, and a lot of civilians are dying. And we have a lot of our friends from the Nuba Mountain who have been arrested and kidnapped. What we are doing is only just bringing the information and just by making petitions and lobbying for the people to really be aware of what is happening in there. We cannot go personally there, but we are very much know and aware of the reports that come to us in Kadugli and other places. The other thing that with the Nuba women who moved to Khartoum due to the conflict, we are working with them. We are trying to at least build on. Some of them are in dangerous situation who had left Sudan itself, but some of them are being there. We had a big celebration on the 8th of March, having the Nuba women really present clearly on doing what they want and speaking on what they want to speak about.
And you've been doing this work since 1998, was it? The Selma Research Center was open? And at one point you had to leave the country, go into exile, spend some time away because of the threats to your own personal safety. So now you're back, and again, you're in this very high-profile position. How concerned are you for your own personal safety?
There's no safety. There's no safety. I cannot tell. I mean, it could happen any time. Either the center closed, confiscated all our materials, or we can be arrested or disappear. Anything could happen. So I was just telling you yesterday that we sleep every night, that I hope that when I come back to the office, things are the same and are there. But we can't. I mean, it's nothing that we can tell.
But you must feel, and do feel, I know, that you are making progress, that in the middle of this there are women who are getting the message, there are the young women getting engaged. How optimistic are you at this point about the difference in country for women specifically?
No, we're hopeful. We are very hopeful, and we will continue doing that, because I think what is inspiring, actually, is the young generations. We work with youth in universities. We work with girls in high school. We work with, I hope that we can have something like the City of Joy again, and replicate that. But we're using art, creativity. We are doing a lot of things with the young people. We have what we call now Salma's Friends. It's a Facebook, and there are now over 400 young women and men coming up together, believing on what we are doing. And what they are doing, actually, they do come every 2 weeks to the office. They meet, they have made a committee, they organize, they go whatever we want. I mean, they have organized the full of 8th of March, and thank for V-Day for their generous support. for us to really, in that massive sadness and depression, to make us celebrate. And actually they did celebrate. From 9 o'clock to 11 p.m., those young people. And I must say that I had a very lashback from the women of my generation and the older generation. And they said to me, we didn't see ourselves. Where are we? These AIU people have really derailed the whole celebration. And I said, I'm sorry, they forced themselves because they are more than us. And they need to have a space, and they need to take the lead. And they have made it.
Thank you for taking the lead. I quickly wanted to go through and show more of the pictures. Thank you, Fahima, for the work and the leadership, and we'll continue our conversation. It's time, it seems to me, to add to our conversation the woman who is, I think, without question, and many of you must agree after hearing her this morning, one of the strongest, most powerful, most passionate, most committed voices to end violence against women and girls, Eve Ensler. So, Eve, we heard this morning in the plenary how V-Day began, how it operates, how it finds activists like this on the ground. And in particular, I'm wondering what you are hearing as you are hearing each of these very specific approaches in very different countries, but all countries in which violence is the order of the day. It's not the unexpected or unusual incident, but life. How do you frame the work that's going on in such circumstances?
Well, first of all, I'm in awe. That's what I feel, first of all. I can't believe that such women exist. I know we all feel that, just sitting here and listening. It gives me hope in ways I really can't even articulate, you know? Because I spend time with Christine in Congo. And I know what the work is like on the ground, and I know how hard this work is, you know? So I just need to take a moment.
Would you like a drink of water?
No, it's okay. No, I'm just really moved. I'm moved by the work. And I think, you know, they're just being so humble here and not complaining and not whining and not talking about what life is like. But when you talk about, you know, going to sleep at night and not knowing whether your center is going to be there the next day, or when you get up in the morning and you hear that the village next to you has just had a massacre and 60, you know, women have been killed and their babies have been ripped out of them. You know, when that's your daily life, you know, and that you're willing to stay and you're willing to keep going. First of all, I know that kind of tenacity and devotion is what changes the world. And I can't say strongly enough how I think, having spent a lot of time in war zones and conflict zones, as terrible as they are, you know, there's a great Leonard Cohen line, which is, the cracks are where the light gets in. And I love that song so much. And I feel like, ironically, I think that conflict zones are the places where the greatest change is possible. Because, A, it's kind of the end of the world, or the end of the old world. It's come to the end. B, people live in a state of urgency, and the energy is completely raised, so things happen very quickly when it turns the other direction. And women can rise much quicker in those circumstances when they begin to rise, because there's a door open. Where in the West, we pretend that we're just oppressed in a whole clever way. There, it's really apparent, and sometimes when things are very apparent, you can reverse it much faster. So if I were an investor and I had money, I would put my money in conflict zones, and I would put my money in women on the ground in conflict zones. That's what V-Day does. And the reason for that is that, honestly, I sometimes have a very sad view of the world where we're going. On my bad days, I think that Congo is actually where we're all going to be in the end, if we continue to go where we're going, because if climate change continues the way it's going, if poverty, you know, we're looking at zones that are the end result of years of colonialism, years of racism, years of oppression, years of environmental degradation, years of mineral exploitation. You know, they are the cabal of where all these things have come together, and sex is be at the top of it. So those are the places, if we really want to see how we're going to reverse the trends of the world, to invest, because those will be the people who lead us out of the world that we're in right now. And my experience, certainly with all the women sitting up here, but particularly in Congo, because I've had the most on the ground and I spend a lot of time there, is women in the Congo are absolutely powerful. They're just fierce. And I know that's true in Sudan, and I know that's true in Somalia, because they've survived all this. They've survived all this. I mean, to survive alone gives you a strength and a tenacity that doesn't happen in other places. So when we were at the graduation, for example, at City of Joy, and we watched women who 6 months earlier who had come, who were having nightmares every night, who weren't able to be, and to see where they had come to in 6 months. That doesn't happen in places in 10 years to see that kind of evolution. And it's like fast-growing trees, you know. It's like, you know, those instant grow plants where it's just like zoop. That's what it was like. So I really feel not only proud of the women on sitting next to me, but I also feel that they have a wisdom, they have an integrity, they have a tenacity, they have courage. That's the kind of work that we all should be supporting and investing in, because it's the model. It's modeling for us how to behave and be in the world.
And they are all, you know, in the spirit of this gathering, they're all social entrepreneurs, because they're all innovating in circumstances, as you say, where we can't even imagine getting up and getting through the day. And they're not doing it alone. They're doing it in a community of other social entrepreneurs, other good efforts, other initiatives, other innovative ideas, many of which are in this room. So what we'd like to do is to give you a chance now to ask the questions that might be on your mind, and then we'll end with some closing thoughts about why we felt this session was so important, and have the support that we did at Skoll for bringing it forward. So let's take your questions, and I'm going to ask you to make yourself very well known, and you can address your questions to anyone or to all of the women who are here. I think this hand went up first, actually, but, you know, I'll put my glasses on and I can tell.
It's my blue necklace. I'll just talk loudly because I'm not sure it's on. It's for Fahima, but I'd love to get all of you to respond to it. When you were talking about not knowing what was coming tomorrow or a week from tomorrow, a month from tomorrow, there was almost a disconnect, almost on a soul level, because there was such equanimity, and there was peace, and there was power, and there was strength. There wasn't fear. And as a leader, that has to be powerful to people that follow you. It was powerful to me to listen to it, and I know it's in these two other women too. But that comes from something that's it's in your soul someplace. So I know it's a zinger of a question to start off with, but that's the most compelling one for me, since I get to ask my question.
Thank you. Fahima?
Well, I think when you live in context like ours, and you take your step forward, when we started, we were very fearful. And then when we move forward. I've been working for the last 26 years. So for me today, I don't have anything to fear of. Only my adopted daughter, I care for her. But I don't think I fear the government. I don't think I fear the security. I mean, I know what to say. I've been arrested. And I just gave a piece of my mind. And despite the way I could expect anything happened to me. But for me, that was not it. I mean, let them say it. And I told them that I'm not fearful. What can you do? Kill me? Do it. So,
you're amazing.
We want to...
With the other lady's answer as well.
Okay.
For me, it's the security is very risky in Somalia. We don't have a security. It's no protection there. It's no strong government. So we just walk and do whatever we're supposed to do that moment. Because in Mogadishu we live day by day. Because it's all the explosion. It scares you a lot. But if you know and you believe what you're doing is right, that makes you more keep doing what you're doing.
And I think as Fartuun said too, they take precautions, keep the music low, do the things not to bring attention to the work. Yes, Christine.
From my side, I don't really think about fear. I was also arrested many times, and mostly during the war, just to be questioned. I never spent a night in prison. But I think for me, I'm not afraid to die, but I'm just afraid because I'm a mother for my children. And I can also see the fear. Like now I just left City of Joy, for a week. And the women there, they were so afraid because I left. They were afraid because I left. And it was like, you're leaving, what about us? I'm coming back. So you don't think about that. Because I think also if you take like the subway in Brussels or in London, you're in danger everywhere. Look what happened in Toulouse, in France. It's, the danger are different, but I think now the world is such a mess with all the extremism that is created by. So it's like, I think we are in danger everywhere. You just have to see how to manage and not to put yourself in danger. Just know that it exists everywhere and you live with it.
There was a question here that went up right away. Yes. All right, whoever has the mic.
Okay. Two concerns. One is for my African sisters. I'm really, I'm so touched and impressed and overwhelmed and oh my goodness. And I'm doing work in Kenya building women's leadership, and I'm wondering how can we make sure there are more of you coming down the pipeline? Right. What I'm wondering how you're thinking about that. What can we be doing to build that pipeline so there's more like you coming? Because we're going to need more like you. And then for Eve, I was really touched by what you said towards the end of your speech today about giving, and if you're going to give, just give. And it just made me think in the current philanthropic climate, there's so much about impact and measuring impact and how can we reconcile that? Because I believe in what you say, just give, but I'm running an organization that needs to fundraise in an environment that is really driven by the language of the market. And we've capitalized what these women are doing. How can we de-link or navigate that space?
Those are two great questions. You want to take the second one first about measurements or impact? By just giving?
Okay, well, I'm so glad you asked that question because this is what I think about all the time. I feel like, unfortunately, to a large degree, giving to, quote, NGOs has now become a new colonization. It's recolonization. And it's kind of now a corporate recolonization, And I find it very problematic. And I'm really beginning to think and write about it. Because what my experience is if you take the time to meet people and go and hang out with people and watch their work, you fall in love with them usually, right? And when I fall in love with people, then I trust them, right? And then if you trust people, you give them money. Now, I don't then go, oh my God, prove to me that why are you proving it to me? I just gave you money. That's all I gave you. I'm nobody. That was just money. It just passed through me. So the idea that you think because you're giving the money, somebody has to prove something to you is an outrageous thing to begin with. If you want to support them and help them do better work and get in there and say, okay, Christine, what can I offer you? And what services can I bring to you to make your job easier? Great news. But to micromanage you and to get you to fill out reports when you're surviving in a country that has no electricity and water and roads and internet? Come on. Stop it. if you get to give out money, get down on your knees every day and thank the good goddesses that you got to be that. And be happy. But stop making poor people and stop making people working in conflict zones treat you like you're God, because you're not. You just have money. And I can't tell you, I watch so many women that we support spend 90% of their time filling out forms when they're trying to save people's lives on the ground. Don't give money to people you don't trust. Don't give it to them. Give it to the people you trust and leave them alone. You know?
I have a feeling there are a few NGOs in the room who know what you're talking about, about filling out those forms and measurements. But one of the things the other question was the critical one that you must ask yourselves every day. And it's not the measurement impact question the way we think about it, but it is measurement. How is your work going to change the future? I mean, are we bringing, to use your words, more women like you into the pipeline? Are we creating a more young Fahimas and Fartuuns and Christines ready to be this?
Yes, it will change. And when I'm talking about Somalia, we have a strong woman in Somalia, but we don't have a voice to come out and say, this is what we're doing. Because it's not a lot to show people. And it's a war zone. Nobody's coming to the city. And even sometimes if they come to the city, they stay at the airport. So in Mogadishu, to come to the airport for us is difficult because it's all the security, they're protecting the government, and that's it. So nobody's outside and coming and to see you the work you're doing. And that's why it's so silent. It's what's going on inside. Nobody knows. And it's luckily someone like me getting naive to invite me. That's how I came here. Otherwise, I wouldn't. And to come to our story, it's not easy to someone comes to us. When Jeffrey came to Mogadishu, and he came to our center, I was so surprised. I was saying, oh, my God, how do you get here? So it was risky for him because it's the kidnapping and all this. But he took the chance to come to us and to see what we're doing. And that's why he wrote the newspaper in New York Times. And that's why I get the Eve to invite me. So if you inside in Mogadishu and war zone, it's very challenging to go in your voice to go outside.
And if I can just say that Jeffrey Gettleman writes for the New York Times and has been very supportive of our efforts in Congo. And he wrote to me and said, Fartuun, you've got to know her, doing the best work in Somalia. So I just called her the next day, and that's how that happened, which was amazing. Yeah.
Question, and it's hard to see above the fifth row because of the light, so I'm going to depend on the people with the mics to alert me. Thank you. All right, somebody has the mic. There you are.
Okay, thank you.
Come in a moment.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you. That's probably one of the most impressive panels I think I've ever seen in my life. You people are inspirational. I work for One Voice. We work in Israel and Palestine, which is a conflict that gets an awful lot more newspaper ink than the conflicts that you're coming from, but I think it's probably a much less challenging environment than what you've managed to be able to produce such incredible results in. The question I have is kind of around mobilization and self-awareness. We've worked in some of the most extreme environments in Israel and Palestine with exclusively female audiences and settlements, and also in very traditional Islamic environments within the West Bank and Gaza. And we do information sessions, building capacity, really giving the women that we're working with the tools to be able to be the sort of activists that you are. And then we find that when they return back to the sort of patriarchal environments that they're within, all of a sudden the confidence that's within those rooms sort of dissipates day by day. And I'm also familiar with the conflict in Northern Ireland, which is where I'm from, and I don't know if you know the story of the McCartney sisters, who managed to basically expel the IRA from their communities, exclusively using themselves and sort of their sisters and female friends. I've seen how it works, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about where that moment of self-awareness can come from, where that mobilization can come from, and how it can be engineered or encouraged. Thanks.
Who would like to take? Fahima, you've been doing a lot of that.
I mean, I think it's different ways and means that depends on the situation you are in. If you have an opening, then you utilize that to the maximum. And if it gets closed, you step back. So it has been like this, but it's mostly the social media. Thanks to it now, it has a lot to do with the Facebook and the internet, the emailing as well. That our network, the old ways that we use was getting together, calling each other, texting messages, and it has been really helpful with the new technology. But also, another thing that we do, at least there's a small venue sometimes, we write a call on newspapers. And that sometimes happens. Because we do also some naming and shaming to the government when they do something and they don't announce it. So we choose, it depends. But we are very alert of when and how to say and what to say and how to say it.
Tell the March 8th story of the women.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell. Just to give you an example, with a program, on our program at City of Joy, we also have a program for the women to know their rights. And it was like they said, when they arrived at City of Joy, they were blind and deaf. So on March 8th, some of the women who were graduated end of January, they were called by the gender minister, because every March 8th, we wear our nicest clothes and then we march, like sheep. And so these women, they just told the gender minister that they have a question. They said, why do we have to march? What's the meaning of March 8th? Do you know the meaning of that day? So the woman was there, said nothing, said, no, we're not going to march anymore. Tomorrow we will stay home. And she was like, why? Who's behind you? This is a revolution. And she said, no, we were blind, but now we know our rights, we know we will not march. So she called the police and they were arrested for 3 days. I think it made my day, my year, my next 10 years, just to show when you just empower the woman, that they can stand up, take decisions, and accept to be arrested. Something is changing. And also, when they come at City of Joy, one of the things they have to do when they go back into the community is to spread everything they learned. And at 3 days, City of Joy, we're making a close follow-up.
And also, I think something at City of Joy that I've been really impressed by is that women really return home in posses. They never return home alone. So I really think the way women change is when you have other women at your back. Because I think it's very hard to go back into patriarchal communities by yourself. And if you have your sisters at your back, they go home with a cell phone, a posse, and $100. And I think those 3 things are what you need: communication, money, and a posse. I think that's what every woman needs in the world,
And women are very good at using all 3 of those things, as we know,
and also in Africa, a Jeep. A Jeep would be good, too.
Yeah.
A Jeep.
Who has the mic now? Okay.
Hello?
All right, good.
Up here?
Oh, great.
Yeah? Hi. My name is Ahava Zaremsky. I work with financial stakeholders, bringing governments and foundations and corporations together. And first of all, I'm humbled. I'm also humbled deeply. I've always been proud to be a woman, but yeah, amazing. First, an offer, because please God, all of us will in this room be asking, how can I help? And I can't speak for anyone else, but at least I can speak of myself and for myself. I work for a Dutch internet startup that's backed heavily by the Dutch government that is all about bringing transparency of projects, of where money is going to the ground. So there isn't that much need for paperwork anymore in 2012. What I'd like to offer, at least V-Day and all of your partners, and boy, I might get in a lot of trouble for this, but okay, that's all right.
Misbehave.
It's what I'm about. It's what I'm about, sister. I'd like for that to offer, at least in February 14th, when you do your Get Out and Dance, to bring all of your partners online, so they're seen. Wow. And not only your partners, but also whoever is dancing with you. And I turned to my CTO, and I said, Akvo will be dancing. We will be dancing. We have offices in the States and in the Netherlands and in Africa and in India and in Sweden. So we will be dancing, but I would like to bring all of you guys online so everyone sees who is dancing where and give voice. So that's what I can offer. That's what I can offer, and hopefully so much more. So we'll start talking about that. And then a question. I think there is something very universal about the human experience, but also about the female experience. I'd like for you all to talk about, on the one side, the legacy of women who aren't buying into the change, because I know of a lot of disempowerment happens woman to woman, generation to generation, so maybe you can speak about that. And then on the flip side, the role of men who are in your community and the role of men supporting you and what that looks like in your country. I'd like to hear both sides.
Great, thanks. Just a word, we have 5 minutes remaining in this session, and we have lots of hands. And those were such brilliant questions, and thank you for your gift of the Internet. So, response to the question of...
Well, one thing I could say that despite the fact that it's not easy to sometimes, get everybody with you, but this is one of the things that we have been trying. As I said, on the 8th of March, women, old women, or my age women, or older women were asking me, where are we? You left us aside and you've taken the whole young generation. But that's not, nevertheless, that we are caring for everybody. But sometimes you have to do it that way. But one of the things that I want to tell you, we work also so much with young men, because the transformation that really happens to women in ending violence is to have sensitive men along, walking with us. And that's very important.
We have men who are supporting us. And it's a family or friends or a colleague. We have a lot of men who are supporting us. I don't know, where is it?
We can hear you, Fartuun.
We have a lot of men who are supporting us. Without the men, I think it would be more harder than what we are doing it. But at the same time, the people are suffering are women. So to have these guys and the women and show them, this is women who get raped. And women, they don't get raped themselves. It's a man who's doing it. So sometimes when we are talking about the rape and women, we always invite the men just to spread the words and say, this is what's going on. If you know, fine. If you don't, tell them, other people, other men. This is not right to do it. And when they see the emotion, when they see the women are crying, when they see how much these women suffering, they take the words. They talk to the other guys. And so that gives us a more power for us.
Mm-hmm. I will be very short. First of all, we don't work against men. We work with men. And in Vida in Congo, we have a movement called V Men. So we work with men to fight violence against women, like we have the V Youth also in Congo. And I think it's just very, very important. And talking about myself, my mother was never at school. She was married with my Belgian father. And I didn't want to be like my mother because I didn't want to be the mother waiting for everything home. So it pushed me to become who I am today.
Let's try and get a couple more questions. Maybe we'll take 2 or 3 in a row. Okay.
I have a mic.
Yes.
I can move.
One here, one here. I want to just make sure we get 3. You've had a mic, yes? And you have a mic. And who's your third?
Had one.
Okay, let's take all 3 questions as quickly as possible so we can get responses to them.
So very quickly, very impressed also by the whole panel, including the moderator.
Yeah.
Every one of you has shown how much the rule of law is important. And Fahima showed better than everybody how law can be against you and against women. And I happen to run a foundation, which is the Thomson Foundation, which has a program which is Trust Law, and it's a network of 240 law firms around the world helping social entrepreneurs and NGOs for free. So I'm just wondering how a foundation like mine, but like many others around in the room, or lawyers that probably are here too, can really try to help you establish the rule of law in every of your countries. I mean, it's a major question. I know there is no simple answer, but I would like to hear your answer.
Okay, question one.
My question takes a step backwards to look at the national and international picture. And we know that one of the ways to really enhance and expand the impact of the really important grassroots work that you are doing in your projects is firstly to develop gender-sensitive legislation and effective strategies for its implementation, and secondly, to have an effective national, international campaign to change attitudes of both men and women. So my question is, how do you think that we can harness the innovative models and the creative thinking that you have pioneered in your local projects and actually apply that at a national and international level to push for policy change in education?
Okay, and third?
Pat, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for your grace that you brought as moderator and to the kaleidoscope of wisdom that you brought to us, reminding us that it's International Women's Month. I'm CEO of an organization called Roots of Peace, and we work around the world demining, replanting, and rebuilding, and on behalf of women around the world who suffer the scourge of landmines and have to hold a child, be it in our offices in Bethlehem. It's not Pennsylvania. It's where a child was born, but there's 1.5 million landmines in the Holy Lands today. We are in West Bank fortunate to have our country director be a woman named Fadwa, who works in this area of West Bank, of course, primarily Muslim. My question is to you is, how do we create what I call the economics of peace? As you mentioned, there was a woman out in the construction area building. How do we create the jobs for women? My daughter and I work in Afghanistan in 28 of the 34 provinces. We create a program called Chicks for Chicks. So children are able to have little baby chickens brought in Kandahar. They're able to, when they grow up, have eggs that feed the children and the families, giving them protein, and then selling them in market. So it's creating the agriculture and the economics of peace. How do we leverage that in Africa and around the world to really create a posse for peace?
Mm-hmm. Love the concept of posse for peace. So this posse gets quick responses to the 3 questions. Do you remember them?
Yeah, I remember
the
I can answer.
Okay.
Well, I mean, thank you very much for sharing what you're doing. But absolutely, I mean, there is nothing that can be done without having a sensitive legal system that supports and really protects the people. And I'll tell you, maybe after the session, how we're working this and the campaigns that we've been leading for the last 5 years on changing the criminal code of Sudan. Regarding the other question of the national and international connection, we have came up with quite an interesting idea of bringing us as African women together to really speak our mind and see what is the best for us and how we want to do it. And this is going to happen sometime this year, hopefully. And I think that we pray for that. But this is going to really bring a national, regional, and international connection of African women looking at what direction they want to walk and what destiny they want to take themselves to.
And if I can just say that Vide's been trying to do this summit of bringing African activists together, and I think we're finally going to do it. So if there's any people in the House who want to support that effort, please see me afterwards, because it will be amazing to bring, for people who said, how do we replicate? The answer is we bring these women together and we begin to get a strategy and a vision for activists throughout Africa where African women determine the agenda.
And given our time, I'm going to not have each respond to each question. Christine, the question about the economic empowerment, because I know as the women come into City of Joy, you're very conscious of what their opportunities will be when they leave. Mm-hmm. What are those opportunities and how do you prepare them?
Yeah, part of the course they have, it's like also how to create small enterprise. And also now we are in the process of buying a huge land, more than 300 hectares. Next to, it's not far away from City of Joy. And as you know, maybe you don't know, in eastern part of DRC, it's like everything is growing up. The soil is so fertile that even if you leave just a bone in the stone, you will have. And that's why, it's like my dream, it's like the next 10 years that we can like have enough money, produce enough by ourselves, and not to be beggars anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have this huge project because it's a long-term project. So thank you for
creating
that
a
question.
Sustainable community, actually.
We need that. Otherwise, in the next 10 years, we will just say we did nothing. Yeah. We have to have a vision. And I don't think so many, like, even NGOs, I don't remember that somebody has bought land for people in Democratic Republic of Congo.
And the women will own the land, and it will be their cooperative, and they will be able to begin to grow all kinds of produce and tilapia and pigs and honey, and it's huge. So what we hope, our dream, is that City of Joy and V-World, the new land, will become a template, for women survivors, which is just about every woman on the planet, and that will then begin to be replicated, and we'll be able to bring it to Somalia, we'll be able to bring it to Sudan, so that women can thrive it. But this is the model, experimental,
I would like to say one thing. It's economic. We made a clothes. It's a handmade clothes in Somalia.
And they're beautiful.
And if we can get that kind of like international to show this what we're doing, it will be helpful. I think if the women can get some money for that.
Okay. I just want to say final words. I have a friend who taught me, I don't know if it's a say or a word, but she said, if your dream does not scare you, it's not big enough. And I think what we are dreaming of, it's very scary.
It's very scary.
We will have the City of Joy wherever we are, and we will have women really having their own spaces where they can really feel secure and can think and move forward. Thank you very much.
And I just say one word in wrapping up. I wish we had hours more, but Laura Voss, I want to thank you for championing this session for such a long time and making sure that it had the time. And I want to also, to each and every one of you, there are so many conversations that could be had. And what we all realize when we hear these stories of big dreamers, brave dreamers, we realize that this is the way change happens. And that change happens when we all embrace it and become the starlings. I love that opening film, realizing that singly and collectively we do change the world. Join me in thanking these women who are doing it every day. Was it good? It was amazing. I think it was amazing. It was great.